Hi everybody! This is my January and February reading wrap-up. So the first book that I finished is All Fours by Miranda July. This book was unhinged and very weird, but I kind of liked it. I give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. So this book follows a woman in her 40s who decides to go on a road trip from LA to New York and back. But only thing is, she decides to stay at this small town really close to where she lives with her family. And she spends the whole time that she was supposed to be doing the road trip there. This book talks about the changing relationship she has with her partner, her body, her identity, and it talks about menopause as well. And it had some really raw and unique thoughts and conversations within. And there was this room that played a big role in the story, but I thought that was portrayed in such a beautiful way. The author described like the texture of the materials in the room, also like the scent of the room. She described it with all of the senses, and I thought that was described super well and super beautifully. Like, someone please take me to that room because I just want to take vacation for like a week just rotting in that room. This book is definitely not for everyone, but if you're in for a very strange and very unique, unhinged book, then you might want to give this one a try. The second book I read is All Her Fault by Andrea Mara. I actually read the audiobook version of this, and it was amazing. I give this thriller a 5 out of 5. The plot twist had my jaw on the floor. So this book follows a mom who goes to pick up her son from a play date, but when she knocks on the door, the person who answers the door is someone she does not know at all, and her son is not there. So this book follows us trying to figure out where is her son, who took him, and why. It was fast-paced right from the bat, and you had a lot going on, and you always had a cliffhanger, so it was really hard to put down. And the ending did not disappoint. Honestly, I haven't read such a good thriller in a really long time, so I was really happy to have picked this up. 5 out of 5. The third book that I read is Night Crawling by Layla Motley. This was such a powerful read, and I think this is a book that I will look back on and think about for a long time. So I give this book a 4 out of 5. So this book follows a 17-year-old girl who's in the toughest situation. Her rent's just been doubled. She can't find a job because she dropped out of high school. She's taking care of the neighbor's kid who's been low-key abandoned. And she just has so much on her plate. And so this kind of leads her into work selling her body on the streets at night. And this gets her into a situation that's even worse. This book talks about really heavy topics like police brutality. It talks about sexual crimes, also about poverty, and very heavy themes. But also there's very tender parts in the story, like when you look at the relationship of her with her family and her friends. And there are also these moments, so I feel like this makes the message even more powerful. And this was a teen character, but the voice was portrayed in a very authentic way. And I think that comes from the author starting to write this book when she was, I think, 18 years old, which is crazy. I mean, like, the sheer talent. But I think that also helped make the character sound authentically young and very believable. And it was very beautifully written as well, so I love that about it too. So the fourth book that I finished was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. I was interested and entertained, so I read until the very end, but I didn't love it. I give this a 3 out of 5 stars. So this book follows a human girl who accidentally kills a fairy because she thought it was a wolf when she was hunting. And because she killed a fairy due to this treaty that humans have with fairies, she gets taken hostage and has to spend the rest of her life in the world of the fairies. And it's about her discovering what the fairy world actually is like. Are they as horrible as she's heard before? And just about what's going on in their world. So the main plot of what is going on in the fairies world, the plot itself was interesting, but the more relationship and like feelings part of the story, I was not so convinced. I didn't really feel why there was such a big connection between the two characters and wasn't really convinced by the romance. But at the same time, I picked this up just to distract myself during a long flight. So, did it do the job? Yes. I was entertained. So, I give it a 3 stars, but I wasn't very convinced by the whole plot. The first book that I finished in February was Butter by Asako Yuzuki. I read this book in the original language in Japanese. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very intricately written and there was a lot of social commentary, which was super thought-provoking. So I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. So this book, for the most part, follows the perspective of Rika, who is a journalist following the case of Kaji, who has been suspected and convicted of murdering several businessmen. And as she goes to the cell of the suspect and she has a lot of conversations with her, her appearances and also the way she thinks starts to change in various ways. So this book doesn't really read like your typical murder mystery or thriller book. It's more of a literary fiction and there's a lot of social commentary, but there's also a murder mystery aspect to it. And I think the first thing that I want to mention about this book is the way that they described the food. Oh my god, like my mouth watered in so many scenes. She describes food so well. It made me want to try so many new recipes and like so many new things. The convicted suspect is like a huge foodie, and so she tells like the reporter Rika to try all of these foods, and every time she tries them, like the description is so good. So that's the first thing that caught my eye in this book. And I think the main subject or the main topic of this book is women's experiences in Japan. And I thought that was described in a very intricate way. And having grown up in Japan for most of my life, I resonated with things that were being described. I really liked that she didn't really oversimplify anything and she showed the many angles of being a woman in Japan. Also, something that really marked me was how much background you get of each character that's in the book. There was various characters, but all of them had like a believable background of why they act and like say the things they do. So I thought that was really cool. Also, hence why it's so long. I think this was like over 500 pages long. So it was a very dense book that I took like 2 weeks to go through. But that was my first read of February. So the second book that I finished in February was Strange Houses by Uketsu. I also read this in the original Japanese language. I give this a 3 out of 5 stars. So very interesting concept, which was this main character reads strange floor plans of houses, like floor plans as in like stuff that looks like this. The main character makes an hypothesis about how this house could be linked with murder and then goes on to solve a case based on mostly just floor plans. And I thought it was an interesting concept. Like, I've never read anything like this before. And it was a super light read. A lot of it was dialogue. There was a lot of pictures of floor plans. There was like emails, whatnot. But I must say it did not hit for me just because it was so dry. Like, there was not much emotions. It was very like, so this floor plan might be this way because it's this. And it's just the characters making hypotheses and talking about what could have happened and what this murder case could be about. But there was no like emotion. There was not really a lot of character depth. And as a reader who loves character-driven books and stories, I just could not be super involved and care about the characters just because you didn't really get that much of a background of the character and a lot of emotions. I think that was like the intended style of writing. So if you're into it, I think you would like it. But if you're more emotions and character driven, this is not really something I would recommend either. The third book that I finished is What Have You Done by Shari LaPena, and I listened to this on audiobook. Although it was interesting, this wasn't my favorite book that was written by her. I did keep reading until the end, but I wasn't amazed by the ending or the plot twist. I felt it was a bit predictable, so it was a 3 out of 5 stars for me. So this book begins with a girl called Diana being found dead in this town called Fair Hill, and throughout multiple POVs, like the POV of Diana's mom, Diana's best friend, her boyfriend, and also interestingly, the ghost of Diana just roaming around, we all try to figure out what happened to Diana and who is behind the murder. It's kind of reading in between like a whodunit and also a thriller book. As always, I do like her writing style and it was very interesting and kept me reading until the end. But as a person who reads a lot of thriller books, I felt like the plot twist was a bit predictable and there was so many characters in the book, like there was so many POVs, but a lot of POVs weren't made to be like a credible suspect. And I feel like if she added a bit more credible suspects, then it could have thrown me off the plot twist. But just because there was just so few, I felt like the plot twist and the ending was a bit guessable. So as you can tell, we're in a new location. I've just came back to France where I am based, but I quickly wanted to pop on here to talk about the last book that I finished in February. So the final book that I finished reading was The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This was heartwarming, genuinely funny, and I absolutely loved it. I give this book a 5 out of 5 star. So this book follows 4 elderly people that are in this club called the Thursday Murder Club. And in this club, they investigate unsolved murder cases. But one day, murder actually happens within their vicinity, in their community. And so these 4 start working on this case and trying to figure out what is going on and who is behind all of these murders. The dialogue in this book was genuinely so funny and it made me laugh. And the characters are so lovable. It was such a joy to read this. I've been reading a lot of heavy and dark themed books recently, so this kind of uplifting book was something that I've been really craving. So I think that's really why this book was such a hit for me. Also, I often don't read books where the main characters are elderly people, so this was something very new for me to read. There were some topics like their spouses have passed away or aren't feeling well, or their friends are in a critical conditions, and those kind of topics. And that really touched me. That was very moving to read about. I would really recommend this to anyone who wants to read something that's gripping but also very heartwarming and kind of funny. I'm really glad to have picked this up at the end of the month. So that's the end of my January and February reading wrap-up video. Thank you so much for watching until the end. I think these 2 months I read a lot of good books. I think I had 2 5 stars and 3 4 stars, so that was really great and I hope you got some recommendations out of it. And yes, I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!